Hello everyone, welcome to Martin Chess Kids. Today we'll show the game played by Mathias to e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, and now f4 with a very strong 3-pawn opening. And here you have a PLC defense, Austrian attack. Then the game continues with bishop to g7, preparing for castling, and knight f3, then bishop to g4, pinning the knight, and bishop to e3, and after this bishop takes f3, and queen takes f3, then c6, and long castling from the white. And here in this position white is clearly better. Then castling from the black, and now you have the pawn to g4, and now you have 4-pawn attack. And another very strong move, h4, with the blue color will show the critical path and strategy to capture the pawn at g6. And here you have the very strong 5-pawn attack. Then the game continues. The black play b5, and now the white continue to execute the plan to win by playing h5. And here the black push the pawn to b4, preparing to capture the knight. However, in this game, the white sacrifice the knight and instead use the pawn to capture g6, h takes g6, and here the black capture the knight, b takes c3. So after this position, the white continue to play queen to h3 and preparing for a checkmate at h7. So queen h3 was split, and now the black play pawn takes b2 and check the king first. C takes b2 and king to b1. If the king capture the pawn, then the black can just continue to play a check, and also the pawn can push to h6, and therefore there will be no threatening mate. But at least this position will be, the white will be a decisive advantage. But in the actual game, after pawn capture, the black play king to b1, and now the queen are able to capture the pawn and checkmate. So the black continue to play by using the pawn to capture g6, and here the queen capture the pawn and check the king. Queen takes h7 and check the king, then king to f7, and now the white continue to push the pawn and attack, and with the idea of use the queen to capture the pawn at g6 and check the king. So f5 was played, then g takes f5, and here the queen go to h5 and diagonal the king. So queen to h5 and check the king. The king has very limited place to move. If the king to move to f6, then you have just simple queen capture the pawn and checkmate. And this pattern of checkmate will be the swallowtail. If the king goes to e6, then the white can play g takes f5, check the king. And now again the king only have one place to move, which is king to f6. And again you have bishop to g5 and check the king, the diagonal check. Or you can use the queen to g6 and checkmate the king. So in this game, after queen check, the king moved to g8, and in this position the white is clearly winning. So the white continue to play bishop c4 and check the king. Then the black defends with d5. And the white capture the pawn e6. And if the black capture with the pawn, then the bishop will just capture again and check the king. And there's nothing you can defend. If you push the pawn, you just capture again. And if the push the rook, you just use the queen and capture, and there will be the checkmate. So after the pawn capture, the black play knight to b6 attacking the bishop, and the bishop play bishop to b3. Then the black play c takes d5, and here the white continue by capturing the pawn at f5, g takes f5, and preparing the rook to g1 and attack the bishop with the threatening mate idea. So after this, the black play rook f6, and now rook d to g1, and with the strong idea of attacking. And here you have the checkmate path, about 14 move checkmate. So after this position, the king moved to king f8, and in this position the white mate in 4. I give you a couple of seconds to figure out how the white can mate in 4. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the moves. After the king moved to f8, the white made a very amazing move by sacrificing the rook. Rook takes g7, and the queen preparing to go to h8 and have the back rank checkmate if the king do not capture the rook. So in the actual game, after rook takes g7, and this is one of the very beautiful sacrifice, and after 23 move, the black resign the game. Because if the king capture the rook, then you can play queen to h7, and then queen to h8 and checkmate, and bringing the rook to the rank 7. For example, queen to h7 check. Now the king has no pieces to block the check, so the only way to go to f8, and then the queen continue to check to move to h8 and check. And after this, again the king do not have any pieces to block the check, therefore only can move to king f7, and here you have the rook h7 and checkmate. So back to this position, the other idea is you can use the rook to check the king. So rook to g1 and check the king, and again the king only have one place to move, and if the king move to f8, then you can just use queen to h8 and check the king, and the king move to f7, and you have the rook to g7 and checkmate the king. If the black block with the rook, then this you can just use the queen to capture the g6, capture the rook, and after this the king move to f8, then you have queen to g8 checkmate, or you can just use the bishop to checkmate the king. And if the king move to h8, you can just play rook to h1 check, or the queen to g7 and checkmate. And here, thank you.